My sister and I were kidnapped at the same time. Under the mask, the kidnapper coldly asked my husband Ethan, of these two people, you can only take one away. Ethan pointed to my sister without hesitation, I choose her. As he held my terrified sister and turned to leave, he didn't even glance back at me. When the kidnapper's knife slowly cut open my clothes, I laughed. After being rescued by the police, I threw the signed divorce agreement in Ethan's face. He was furious. Vivian has a heart condition and can't handle the shock. Do you have to make a fuss about this? I touched the scar on my face and calmly said, Ethan, sign it, and we're even. Summer, are you that impatient? His voice carried a hint of defeat he himself didn't notice. I ignored him, as if he were just air. Fine. I'll sign. I'll sign right now. I calmly watched Ethan. His pen tip heavily scratched his name at the end of the divorce agreement. Ethan threw the pen forcefully, making a piercing sound. I took the agreement that would decide the fate of the rest of my life, carefully folded it, and put it in my bag. Then I turned and walked away without the slightest reluctance. He chased after me, grabbing my wrist with such force it felt like he wanted to crush my bones. Where are you going? I'll drive you. I forcefully shook off his hand, stepped back, and kept a safe distance from him. No need, Ethan. A flash of pained embarrassment crossed his handsome face. 3 years of marriage, and you have to be so heartless? His voice carried a hint of accusation, as if I were the one who had done wrong. I finally laughed. The laughter spilled from my throat, carrying indescribable sarcasm and sorrow. When Ethan chose Vivian, wasn't that more heartless than me? I raised my eyes and stared straight at him. His face turned ashen instantly, as if his hypocritical mask had been torn off. She has a heart condition, the situation was critical. What could I do in that case? Besides, didn't I call the police to save you too? His brows furrowed tightly, suppressing the anger about to erupt. Summer, we don't have to become enemies. I looked at him, my eyes devoid of any ripple. We already are. From the moment he chose Vivian without hesitation, we already were. He was completely choked by my words, all his prepared excuses stuck in his throat. Finally, that nameless rage broke through his reason. He turned around in fury, without looking at me again, and strode towards his car. The engine's roar sounded like the howl of a wounded beast, and soon, that expensive Bentley disappeared from my view. As soon as he left, my spine, taut like a bowstring, instantly relaxed. I leaned against the wall and let out a long, long breath. It was as if I wanted to exhale all the grievances and pain of these 3 years at once. Ding dong, the mobile banking SMS alert sounded particularly pleasant at this moment. I opened it. A huge sum of money, enough to ensure my financial security for the rest of my life, had been transferred to my account. I didn't take his company shares, I only wanted the money and a standalone courtyard house in the old city district. I slowly squatted down, burying my face in my knees. The kidnapper's lustful sneer, the burning pain like my lower body being torn apart, and the sensation of the cold blade slicing across my cheek resurfaced vividly in my mind once again. Ethan, you don't know, do you? By the time you called the police, it was already too late. The moment you chose Vivian, you personally pushed me into true hell. The physical wounds were their warning to me. But the wounds in my heart were the punishment you gave me, completely destroying me. That night, I moved directly into the courtyard. The osmanthus trees in the yard were blooming perfectly, their faint fragrance calming the heart. For the first time in 3 years, I slept soundly. At 18, I was retrieved from the slums by my so-called biological parents. Dressed impeccably and with elegant postures, they told me I was the Jiang family's biological daughter who had been switched at birth. I thought my life had finally seen the dawn, that I could escape the days of hunger and cold. But I didn't expect that I was just stepping from one hell into another, beautifully packaged one. They said the fake heiress's parents had both passed away, so they wouldn't send her away, but their daily treatment of us was worlds apart. I lived in the smallest servant's room, with moldy walls, dark and damp. They made me eat the leftovers from the table, watching the fake heiress Vivian pick and choose from the full table of dishes. "Dad, Mom, this lobster isn't fresh, I won't eat it." Okay, if Vivian doesn't like it, don't eat it." "Zhang Ma, quickly take it away." Then, that plate of almost untouched lobster became my extra meal for the evening. Watching that couple's meticulous pampering of Vivian, and then looking at myself, I just found it ridiculous. Blood ties were worthless in the face of 20 years of nurturing affection. Actually, the one who was supposed to marry Ethan was my sister Vivian. They had been betrothed since childhood, a perfect match in status. But a sudden car accident caused Ethan, this favored son of heaven, to lose his male functionality and suffer from severe depression. He fell from the clouds into the mud, becoming a half-cripple that everyone avoided. The always proud Vivian screamed in front of everyone that she didn't want to marry a eunuch. So, this blessing fell upon me. The whole family surrounded me, with Vivian crying pitifully. Father, with a stern face, said the Jiang family's business relied entirely on the Gu family's support and couldn't back out of the marriage at this time. And my biological mother, holding my hand, cried and begged me. "Summer, Mom begs you, Vivian has been spoiled since childhood, she can't endure this kind of grievance. Marry in Vivian's place, and you'll be the great hero of our Jiang family." Looking at her face full of loving kindness, I just found it incredibly ridiculous. Was I born tough-skinned and thick-fleshed, deserving to suffer all grievances? But they gave me no right to choose. After forcing me to drop out of school, the next day they bundled me up and stuffed me into the Gu family's wedding car. On the wedding night, he smashed everything in the room that could be smashed, pointed at my nose, and cursed me as a prostitute sent by the Jiang family to humiliate him. His eyes bloodshot, like a trapped beast, he pounced on me, forcefully tearing open my clothes. I trembled in fear, yet I saw a man at his most vulnerable, most unbearable, deepest despair. He wanted to prove himself but found he was utterly powerless. At that moment, the madness in his eyes faded, leaving only ashen silence and self-loathing. The room was in complete disarray. Looking at him, the fear in my heart surprisingly dissipated slowly, replaced by a strange sympathy. I didn't cry or make a fuss, I just walked over and calmly told him, "I can cure you." Life after marriage was no different from hell. A sexless marriage, for a man like Ethan who was once arrogant and unrivaled, was non-stop torture day and night. His depression grew increasingly severe, his moods unpredictable, and he humiliated me in every way. He would flip the table over the slightest thing, with scalding soup splashing on my arm, yet he wouldn't even glance at it. He would suddenly wake up in the middle of the night, choking my neck, asking if I was mocking him. I silently endured all of this because I knew it was just his illness acting up. I began incorporating treatment seamlessly into his daily life. His meals were medicinal dishes I carefully prepared, the incense in the study was calming herbs I personally ground. Every night before bed, I would give him a head massage to relieve his tense nerves. From initial resistance and smashing bowls, to later suspicion and scrutiny, and finally silence and tacit acceptance. Because his body genuinely showed subtle improvements. He no longer suffered from insomnia all night, and his emotions gradually stabilized. Once, his depression flared up again, and he grabbed the paper cutter from the desk and slashed at his wrist. In desperation, I took out the silver needles hidden in my luggage for the first time. He looked at me in shock, and that night, I performed a complete acupuncture treatment on him for the first time. When I pulled out the last silver needle, I clearly saw that he felt a long-lost physiological response from his lower body. From that day on, he completely let down his guard and began to fully rely on my treatment. Our relationship also gradually changed. He would be good to me clumsily, like a child who had done something wrong. He no longer smashed things and would sit quietly in the study, watching me grind herbs for him, for an entire afternoon. He began to remember that I liked light flavors, and spicy dishes no longer appeared on the table. He even gave me a set of out-of-print medical classics on my birthday, which he had specially commissioned someone to bid for at an overseas auction. During that time, Ethan's body basically recovered, and he regained his vitality. And I, hopelessly, began to fall in love with this somewhat clumsy, somewhat cute man. I thought that after the bitterness came sweetness, and I was finally free. Just when Ethan held me for the first time and cautiously suggested consummating the marriage to have a child, Vivian returned to the country. On the first day she returned, Ethan stayed out all night for the first time in 3 years. The next day, under the pretext of visiting, she boldly moved into our marital home. She wore my silk pajamas, swirling a red wine glass, using my favorite cup. She acted like the lady of the house, while I became the untimely guest. I looked at Ethan, hoping he would give me an explanation. But he just avoided my gaze and said lightly, "Vivian just came back, she's not used to living outside and has no place to stay temporarily." My heart, in that instant, plummeted from the warm sun of midsummer straight into the biting cold of winter. The medicinal meal I had personally prepared for him, simmered for 3 hours, was poured into the sink by Vivian with a smile. She pinched her nose, with a face full of disgust, saying, "Ethan, this herbal smell is too awful. Don't drink this mystical stuff anymore." I looked at Ethan. He just frowned and said to Vivian, "Don't fool around." But there was no hint of reproach. At that moment, I seemed to understand something. Vivian said she wanted to start a business, and Ethan mobilized all his resources to support her unconditionally, investing in her projects and paving the way for her. And the cause of this kidnapping was Vivian's so-called entrepreneurial project. She squandered Ethan's investment recklessly, and the project quickly lost money. To shirk responsibility, she blamed all the problems on a project manager, fabricating evidence, leading to the other party's bankruptcy, his son's death from serious illness without money for treatment, and his wife divorcing him. That manager went mad. So, the man driven insane chose the most extreme way to retaliate. He kidnapped Vivian. And I, who just happened to go look for Ethan that day, was treated as an incidental bonus and kidnapped along with her. We were locked in an abandoned warehouse. Ethan received the kidnapper's call and rushed over at the fastest speed. The kidnapper demanded $100 million in ransom. Ethan didn't hesitate and quickly transferred the money. Watching his anxious figure, a faint warmth unexpectedly arose in my heart. Perhaps he still cared about me. However, the kidnapper's next words plunged me into an ice cave. "Why only $50 million? Are you crazy? The bank can't withdraw that much cash at once. That's all there is in the account. I'll have to gather the rest slowly." He sneered and told Ethan, "Sorry, this money is only enough to save one person. Choose one of the 2 women in front of you." The warehouse was deathly silent. I looked at this man whom I had pulled back from hell bit by bit. I thought that 3 years of daily companionship, those shared memories of facing pain together, that spiritual intimacy, could make me the unique exception he chose. However, reality gave me the loudest slap in the face. He had almost no hesitation, firmly and without delay, walked towards Vivian. "I choose her." Those 3 words were like 3 poison daggers, precisely stabbing into my heart. He carefully untied the ropes on Vivian, holding the trembling woman tightly in his arms, comforting her softly. At this moment, he was so close to me, yet so far. As he held Vivian and passed by me, not even the hem of his clothes touched me. Watching his departing back, my heart cooled inch by inch, froze into ice, and then shattered into powder. The kidnapper's knife slashed across my face, a sharp sting came. Warm blood flowed down, but I felt no pain at all. It turned out that the so-called healing, the so-called love, was just my solo performance, my wishful thinking. I begged the bandit who had already received the money to let me go. But he licked his lips, revealing a nauseating smile. "The money is my material compensation, as for you, consider it my spiritual compensation." His knife slowly cut open my clothes. When the police arrived, it started raining heavily. I squatted naked in the corner, my body still shaking uncontrollably. Rainwater mixed with blood and tears slid down my face. My lower body still bore the bloodstains and tearing pain from the violation. I never imagined that after 3 years of marriage, my first time would be handed over to someone else by my own husband. At that moment, I fully understood. Some people's hearts are made of stone. Even if you warm them to the point of self-immolation, you can't heat them up. I contacted a familiar lawyer and drafted that divorce agreement. Ethan, we're even. The day after the divorce, my mom's call came chasing after me. As soon as the call connected, it was her hysterical ranting. She cursed me for being ignorant, for ruining the Jiang family's future, for why I had to provoke Ethan. Finally, she commanded me to go back immediately, kneel and apologize to Ethan, and beg for his forgiveness. I hung up the phone and then really went back to that villa. I went back not to apologize, but for a complete severance. In the living room, Ethan and Vivian were sitting intimately on the sofa. Vivian nestled in his arms, crying pitifully, repeatedly recounting how much shock she suffered in that kidnapping and how terrifying the experience was. My parents, my biological parents, were surrounding her, asking about her well-being with faces full of concern. As if she was the only one kidnapped and hurt. Not one of them glanced at me. Not one asked if I was injured. I was like a transparent outsider intruding into their happy family. The first to notice me was my mother. She screamed, pointing at my nose and cursing, "Summer, are you crazy? How can you bring up divorce at this time? Don't you know Vivian just suffered a shock? You're too selfish." I laughed, as if I had heard the funniest joke in the world. I laughed until tears flowed uncontrollably. I'm selfish? I wiped away the tears, my gaze coldly sweeping over each of them. Then when you forced me to drop out of school and marry in her place, weren't you selfish? I took out my phone and pressed play. A recording played clearly in the dead silent living room. A wild girl from the countryside, marrying into the Gu family is your good fortune. Don't be ungrateful. This was my father's stern reprimand. Vivian is the treasure we've held in our palms for 20 years, we can't ruin her. Summer, just think of it as helping the family. This was my mother's hypocritical plea. The living room instantly became deathly silent. My parents' faces turned from flushed red to pale white. Vivian also stopped her clumsy performance, looking at me in disbelief. I declared to them word by word, clearly, from today on, I, Summer, with your Jiang family. Sever all ties. In front of them, I blocked all their contact methods. Then, without looking back, I left that nauseating place. I sold all the domestic properties Ethan compensated me with at the fastest speed, converting them all to cash. Then I booked a flight ticket abroad. At the moment the plane took off, looking at the city lights growing smaller outside the window, there was no reluctance in my heart. Goodbye, Ethan. Goodbye, my ridiculous family. From now on, we have no more entanglements. With the huge sum from the divorce, I established my own integrative Chinese Western medicine laboratory abroad. Many people thought this amount was astronomical. But for me, my most precious wealth was never money. It was the unique clinical treatment experience accumulated over these 3 years on Ethan. He was like a living collection of complex diseases. Now, what I need to do is turn that folk remedy originally tailored for him alone into a standardized medical protocol that can benefit countless male patients. After I left, Ethan's physical condition, as I expected, deteriorated drastically. His depression relapsed, and it was more severe than before. His prized male function completely failed, returning to the desperate state of 3 years ago. He sought famous doctors from all over the world, spending countless amounts of money. But all the doctors were helpless. They all said his previous recovery was a medical miracle in itself and fundamentally impossible to replicate. Only then did Ethan realize belatedly, like a madman, that I, Summer, was his only, and lifelong only, medicine. And Vivian, who made him abandon me, after his repeated failures, her eyes showed undisguised disgust and contempt. That look made every instance of his impotence in bed seem utterly cheap and ridiculous. He began frantically searching for me. Calling, texting, going to places I might have been before. But he couldn't find me. I had vanished like evaporated water. Finally, he somehow learned my whereabouts from a friend and immediately booked a flight to come over. When he found my laboratory, his face still carried a trace of his habitual, condescending superiority. He probably thought that as long as he appeared before me, I should gratefully pounce on him and beg him to take me away. However, he was politely stopped by the receptionist. "Sorry, sir, do you have an appointment?" "I'm here to see Summer." He frowned, unaccustomed to being blocked. "Sorry, Summer is in a meeting, no appointments, no visitors." The receptionist's formulaic response made his face darken instantly. He looked inside through the laboratory's huge glass window. Then, he saw me. I was wearing a neat white research coat, standing in the center of the conference room, confidently discussing fluently in English with a group of blonde, blue-eyed foreign experts. My face had delicate light makeup, and between my brows and eyes was an unprecedented radiance. It was a dazzling appearance he had never seen in the 3 years I cooked and cared for him. At that moment, for the first time, Ethan felt an emotion called panic in his heart. He realized that the canary he had kept in a cage had, at some point, broken free from its shackles and flown to a broader sky. And that sky was a height he could no longer reach. My research project progressed very smoothly but soon encountered a key bottleneck. To overcome this difficulty, I needed technical support from an authoritative expert in neurosurgery. A name immediately came to my mind. My senior brother, Sebastian. Back in medical school, he was like a god. Now, he is the youngest and most renowned neurosurgical expert internationally. With a try-it-out attitude, I sent him my project proposal and some core data via encrypted email. Unexpectedly, he replied the same day with just 4 words, "Wait for my return." The next day, he flew back from New York and appeared directly in my laboratory. When Sebastian saw the 3 full boxes of clinical practice case data on Ethan over 3 years that I had organized, he was completely shocked. He looked at me, his eyes unable to hide admiration and amazement. "Summer, you're a genius." He decided on the spot to join my laboratory fully with core technology as his stake. "Let's team up," he extended his hand, "and show the world what miracles the combination of Chinese and Western medicine can create." I shook his hand. "Okay." My collaboration with Sebastian caused quite a stir in the industry. This news naturally spread back to the country. Vivian felt an unprecedented sense of crisis and jealousy. It seemed in her perception, I should always be inferior to her. She began her old tricks, having paid marketing accounts smear me wildly online. Overnight, I became a charlatan with fake credentials, no medical license, relying on shady means to scam money. They said, how could someone expelled from university conduct medical research? They said I was just a discarded wife from a wealthy family, desperate for money. Ethan, seeing these overwhelming news, unusually called me. His tone was complex, with a subtle superiority and pity. "I saw the news online, I can help you clarify." He probably thought this was another opportunity for him to bestow upon me. Listening to his familiar voice on the other end, I just found it ridiculous. I sneered, my tone unmasking sarcasm. "No need. If Ethan has this leisure, better take care of your own body first." After saying that, I hung up directly. The busy tone came, and Ethan held the phone, stunned in place. He couldn't understand how I dared to speak to him in this attitude. He even less understood how, in just a few months, I had become like this. The online attacks on me intensified under Vivian's financial offensive. Insulting labels like unlicensed miracle doctor, shocking scam of the discarded wealthy wife, and so on, stuck firmly to me. Countless uninformed netizens flooded my social accounts, hurling insults and personal attacks. Amid this chaos, my mentor from school days, a highly respected authority in the medical field, suddenly spoke out for me. He posted my graduation thesis from back then, which had been rated as the most imaginative student paper in the past decade due to its overly advanced views. Following that, my classmates and roommates from back then also came forward. They posted articles I published in international core journals during university, proving my academic ability far surpassed my peers. They also said that my withdrawal from school was not due to poor grades but forced by family reasons. The direction of public opinion began to shift subtly. And at this time, Sebastian held a small media conference abroad in his personal capacity. Facing countless flashes, he was composed and elegant. He publicly announced that he would deeply collaborate with my laboratory as a technical partner. And he publicly stated that my research was an epoch-making breakthrough in the field of neural regeneration, a great project capable of changing the destinies of countless families. The weight of this statement was as heavy as Mount Tai. Public opinion exploded instantly, completely reversing. Everyone was dumbfounded. The public began to wildly wonder who this Summer was, whom the god-level expert Sebastian praised so highly. Now, without me doing anything, the omnipotent netizens started digging deep spontaneously. Soon, someone dug up the sensational kidnapping news. Then, new questions arose. Why, in the same kidnapping, did Ethan only save Vivian? What kind of princess is this Vivian that the other one deserved to die? Even more, someone directly exposed Vivian's so-called heart disease lie. She has heart disease? Then what about the photos exposed of her renting out a nightclub and partying wildly a week before the kidnapping? In the photos, she had heavy makeup, holding a wine glass, laughing happier than anyone. Where was the slightest appearance of a heart patient? The lie was exposed. The wind completely changed. Those accounts that once insulted me began quietly deleting comments. Everyone realized they might have been used as tools. In this farce, who the real clown was became self-evident. Just as Vivian and Ethan were overwhelmed by the reversal of public opinion, heavier truth hammers smashed down one after another. The true inside story of the kidnapping was exposed. The parents of the project manager framed by Vivian, leading to his family's ruin, released online a recording of Vivian's arrogant and life-disregarding phone call. In the recording, she sarcastically mocked the other's incompetence and viciously said, "It's just a little loss of money, what's the big deal? Anyway, my brother Ethan has my back. His wife running away is none of my business? He couldn't keep his wife, serves him right. If you dare bother me again, I'll make sure your whole family can't survive in a city." This recording instantly ignited fury across the entire internet. Following that, an old nanny from the Jiang family also came forward. Facing the camera, she cried as she recounted how after I was brought back to the Jiang family, I lived worse than the servants. She said I ate leftovers and wore Vivian's discarded old clothes. She also confirmed how the Jiang family had coerced and enticed me to drop out of school and marry the then crippled Ethan in Vivian's place. Piece by piece, the sufferings I had endured were exposed in the most tragic way. However, for Ethan and Vivian, the most fatal blow was still to come. A video of Vivian partying wildly with her best friends during her studies abroad suddenly went viral online. In the video, she had exaggerated smoky makeup, cigarette in hand, fooling around with a group of people. Facing the camera, she laughed drunkenly, "I'm not marrying that dead eunuch. What is the Gu family? Make me marry and live as a widow? Let my stupid sister from the countryside go, haha. Maybe she'll have to use her hands. It kills me." This video exploded like an atomic bomb on the internet. Every word was like a poison knife, precisely stabbing into Ethan's heart. The 3 words "dead eunuch" became an indelible label, firmly branded on the forehead of the Gu Group president. The whole internet was forwarding madly, all mocking. Ethan, this once lofty man, became the biggest laughingstock overnight. The day after the video was exposed, the Gu Group's stock price plummeted, almost diving, evaporating hundreds of billions instantly. Ethan, this man who once stood at the top of the pyramid, wherever he went, could feel others' strange gazes. Those looks mixed with sympathy, contempt, and mockery made him experience a taste of public execution worse than physical disability. Like a completely enraged lion, he returned home, threw all of Vivian's things out of the villa, and drove her out of the Gu family like a stray dog. Losing the protection of the Gu family's big tree, plus the exposure of previous misdeeds, the Jiang family's retribution came. All partners collectively announced termination of contracts, and banks came to collect debts. The once glorious Jiang enterprise declared bankruptcy almost overnight. And Ethan sat alone in the empty office. He watched that video that made him lose all face over and over again. Watching Vivian's unscrupulous mockery on it, and thinking of my silent contributions and gentle companionship over those 3 years. For the first time, he felt what bone-piercing pain was. He wanted to destroy everything. He wanted to smash the computer, throw the phone, destroy the whole world. But what he most wanted to destroy was the stupid self who chose Vivian back then. Regret flooded him like a tide, almost suffocating him. He began frantically calling me, texting, but all contact methods had been blocked by me. Finally, like grasping the last straw, he booked a flight again, desperately, madly flying to find me. He thought that as long as he turned back, I would definitely wait in place. He thought that as long as he apologized sincerely enough, I could act as if nothing happened. He was wrong. Terribly wrong. When he found me, I was at the award ceremony of the World Medical Summit in Switzerland. Under the spotlight, I won the annual Medical Innovation Gold Award for the Neuron Regeneration Activation Project. I wore a starry sky-colored gown custom-made for me by Sebastian, standing in the center of the stage under everyone's attention. By my side was the equally excellent Sebastian, his gaze towards me gentle and focused. I delivered my acceptance speech confidently and calmly in fluent English. While Ethan, dressed in suit and tie but unable to hide his disheveled appearance, was stopped by security at the outermost perimeter of the venue. He stood there in the shadows, like a pitiful and pathetic silhouette, looking up at my radiant glory. Looking at me, who once belonged to him but was pushed away by his own hands. After the ceremony, he rushed out from somewhere and blocked me in the backstage corridor. He grabbed my hand, his eyes particularly bloodshot from being filled with red veins. "Summer, I was wrong, I really was wrong." His voice was hoarse, carrying a hint of pleading. "Come back, okay? Come back with me, I'll give you the goo group. I'll give you everything I have." I looked at him as if watching a clown performing comically. I gently but firmly withdrew my hand. I looked at him like a stranger unrelated to me. "Ethan, come to think of it, I have to thank you." I smiled slightly, my tone calm and unruffled. "Thank you for providing such valuable and detailed first-hand clinical data for my project." As thanks, I paused, looking at his instantly pale face, and said word by word, extremely clearly, "When my product officially launches, I can give you a 20% discount. To give you a chance to become a real man again." My words, like the sharpest knife, tortured his last shred of dignity to pieces. At that moment, Sebastian stepped forward, unobtrusively protecting me behind him. He raised our interlocked hands. On my ring finger, a brilliant diamond ring shone with happy light under the lamps. Sebastian looked at the stunned Ethan, his voice gentle yet firm. "Sorry, Mr. Ethan. My fiancé has been busy all day and needs to rest." Ethan's gaze fixed deadly on that ring, as if struck by lightning. His body swayed, and he completely froze in place. His world collapsed in that moment. A few years later, the summer biotech company I founded successfully went public, becoming a global top medical tech giant. My marriage with Sebastian was happy and fulfilling. We had a smart and cute daughter, her eyes were like mine, and her smile resembled Sebastian's greatly. The Jiang family, who had done much evil back then, also received their due retribution. The Jiang parents, after bankruptcy, lived in poverty and finally died of illness in a dark, damp low-rent house, with no one by their side when they died. Vivian was sentenced to prison for commercial fraud and multiple malicious slanders, spending the rest of her life in jail. And Ethan never remarried. He never recovered from that illness again. The drug I developed can cure men all over the world, but it alone can't cure him. Because heart disease has no medicine. He became a lonely person living in huge shadows. The only thing he did every day was sit in the empty study, collecting all news and reports about me. On the wall of his study hung a huge photo. It was a photo taken by a reporter when I was on the stage receiving an award at the World Medical Summit. In the photo, I was confident, beautiful, with a brilliant smile. That was me, the light he could never touch again. He often had hallucinations. As if returning to an afternoon many years ago. The sunshine was just right, the breeze gentle. I was sitting by his side, head down, focused on applying needles to him. Sunshine sprinkled on my profile, plating it with a soft golden light, unbelievably gentle. Only at this moment did he finally understand. What I brought him was never just the hope of physical recovery. Those 3 years were the closest his barren life had ever been to love and redemption. But he personally pushed his goddess into the abyss. And for himself, he forever locked the door to hell. For the rest of his life, no escape.